Dr. Tracy, Tracey, Phillips, Phillips.
And for our purposes, broadly speaking, what do you do for a living?
I am a college professor.
Got it. And how long have you lived in South Carolina?
30 years.
Got it. Okay. So we were just kind of covering this earlier, but you were on, let's say you were on the fence about Donald Trump in 2016, but by 2020 you had voted for him. And what do you feel about Donald Trump as we sit here today in 2024?
I like him. I honestly do. I like the fact that he did what he said he was going to do as president. There wasn't one thing that he promised prior to his election in 2016 that he did not accomplish, even despite a lot of opposition for the things that he wanted to accomplish. I like that he's very real, very direct. Those are the things. I was one of the things I said years before President Trump was that the United States is a big corporation. We have input, we have output. We needed a businessman to run this country. I was so tired of career politicians. Donald Trump showed in 4 years what the country being run by a successful businessman can do. Our economy was the best it had ever been. Unemployment was record low. And so to me, he proved what he said he was going to do, and I appreciate that.
It sounds like you do not need to be convinced.
Not at all.
I talked to a fair number of people. I mean, it was interesting, you described yourself when we were talking earlier as a conservative and now as a Republican, who felt the way you did about his presidency, but found his behavior at the end of it disqualifying.
No, it didn't bother me at all.
Nothing around the January 6th.
No. And the reason is because there was a lot of propaganda. I'm a researcher. By training, by profession, I'm a researcher. And so anything that came out, I did my research on. And a lot of, I want to say 99.9% of the time, when I actually dove deep into the research, I found that what was being put in the media and the other politicians were lies, or they were misrepresentations. So no, I did not find anything that he did to be, for me, worthy. And honestly speaking, I don't vote my feelings. So even if it may sound crazy, but even if I had a Fortune 500 company and the COO personality was something that I didn't care for, but he was bringing me profits and he was making the shareholders happy, I'm gonna hire him and keep him, because I don't care how I feel about him. I care about results.
Is there a tension in your mind at all then between how you may or may not feel about Donald Trump on a given day versus what his record was?
No.
Okay.
I was just using that as an example.
Okay.
But the truth is, I have no problem with anything he says and does. He shoots from the hip. I'm a New Yorker, he's a New Yorker. We shoot from the hip, okay? We say it like it is, whether you like it or not. It's just gonna be out there. I trust what he says. He says what he's gonna do, and he does what he says.
What do you want to see in the second term?
I want to see him bring the country back to what it was before COVID. That's all
What does that mean?
I want the economy to be where it was. I want unemployment. I want prosperity for Black people, for my people. I want to see no wars. I want to see oil prices down. Prior to COVID, this country we were doing very well economically, and I want to see that back. I want to be able to, again, go out and buy groceries and do the things I want to do without having to worry about, whether or not I'm going to be able to afford to.
For the last, 30 plus years, Democrats have had a lock on Black voters across this country. What are they getting wrong now?
They took us for granted. I mean, that's really it. And that's kind of crazy because they've been taking the Black vote for granted. Every 4 years, the Democratic nominee comes out, does some crazy propaganda. I think last week Biden sat at a table eating chicken with a Black family.
I didn't see that.
It was embarrassing. It really was. They come out every 4 years. I said the next step is going to be for him to go on one of the Black radio shows or podcasts. They do the same thing. They have the same tricks up their sleeve. And then once they get elected, because people just buy into it, they disappear. They don't do anything for Black voters, and then we spend 4 years complaining that, we voted for this person, but they didn't do anything for us. And we get mad. And then 4 years comes around and they start right back again. And it's like, okay, I'll just go. They started to take us for granted, and people started waking up, and I'm so happy about that. And people started turning around and saying, listen, you can't take me for granted. I want what I had before, and you're not going to give it to me. I don't care whether there's Democrat behind your name. You're not going to give it to me.
The Trump campaign, I mean, I've talked to them about this. I think there's a huge opportunity here with black voters, with black men who feel totally disillusioned with the way Democrats have run things.
Yes, exactly. And then it's been growing, but I think these last 3 years have really taken it over the edge. I think that the discontent has been growing slowly, but I think now these last 3 years just took it over, and people, particularly black men, black voters, are saying, "Whoa, this is not what it should be." They cannot just Trump come out and say, "This is what he'll vote for me because I'm a Democrat." So, no.
How much is the fact that this is going to be a race between two incumbents important here? This is not, there's nothing theoretical about this race, right?
Yeah, I think it's historical, and I love it because we can actually take the actual record of both presidents, line them up side by side, and say who did better for America. And if you do that and just get out of your emotions and just say, let me look at the numbers, the choice is clear. Donald Trump did better for America than Biden has ever done in the last 50 years, let alone the last 3.
Man, I mean, you're like knocking it out of the park here. You're like cutting me off on every other question that I think of. No, this is great. Like, I'm like, wow, okay, she already answered that. We are still in the primary. Did you live here when Nikki Haley was governor, or were you still in New York?
No, I didn't.
So, just, for the sake of the argument, I mean, how do you look at her record as governor when you think about voting for her versus Trump's record as president? I mean, like, how do you view that part of this puzzle?
So governor and president are vastly different. When she was governor, I actually supported her, to be honest with you. I thought she did pretty good. I mean, she didn't do anything great. I think she had, during her governorship, she got the Confederate flag taken down. I think that was probably the biggest thing she did.
Which ironic, because she doesn't talk about it.
She doesn't talk about it all, but that was the only thing she really did. I did like that she was a woman of color, she was a family, those things. As a matter of fact, I thought at the beginning she would make a good president. But one of the things I've seen in the last couple of years, or really since she's come into this race, is a lot of inconsistency. Obviously social media you can't hide anything. And things that she's, for example, tweeted in 2020, she is completely tweeting the exact opposite now. And to me, that is a lack of sincerity. I don't trust her anymore. I think that, it seems to me that she is going to say whatever needs to be said to whichever audience she is saying it to. And that does not make a good president.
You certainly don't have that problem with Donald Trump.
Not at all. He says the same thing to everybody,
whether they like it or
not.
You mentioned that you like that she was a woman of color. Does that kind of representation matter to you? Like, would you like to see a person of color on the ticket with Donald Trump?
I would like to see the most qualified candidate and the person who could, when his presidency is over, can take us to another 8 years. I don't care what color they are. I don't care what gender they are. I don't care any. I just want them to someone who can build on what he's doing.
How important is that idea that he's only got 4 years, so whoever's on the ticket with him is basically going to be on the launch pad to run right away? Like, how much do you think about that when you're thinking about who he might pick?
I have my choices in my
head.
Like
to share with me?
I will not, because they're mine. But so yeah, I think that there are a lot of qualified former, people who are running for it. I think who would make great vice presidents. But I also trust him, and I trust his decision on who he chooses. One of the things that honestly, you didn't ask, but I'll tell you, one of the things that really made me angry was that Biden when he was first elected, said I would purposely choose a woman of color.
For vice president or for Supreme Court?
For vice president.
Well, he did it for that too.
Exactly. That was so insulting to me as a black woman. And I'll tell you why. Because I don't ever want to be judged or chosen for anything because of the color of my skin or the gender I am. I want to be judged and chosen based on my qualifications. And if someone, particularly someone white, comes to me and says, I'm choosing you because you're black, I won't tell you what I'll do, but it would not be pretty. I would definitely not accept the position. I thought it was a pandering, I thought it was ill-conceived, and I thought it was insulting to the Black community, especially considering the results.
I think that's such a good point, right? If you want to say, I picked the most qualified person, it happens to be this person,
Exactly.
as opposed to, I picked the most qualified person who falls in this category.
Exactly.
I totally hear that. I had another thought on vice president, but now you threw me off because that was such a good answer too. I'm like writing this piece in my head, it's all so good. Let me ask you, the other thing that's going to happen between now and November is he's going to go on trial in all these places, right? He has all these court cases against him. How do you view those cases? Are they legitimate?
Not at all.
None of them.
None of them. They're not even trying to hide the fact that they're not legitimate. The case in New York, for example, over the weekend, the governor came out to other companies and said, you don't have to worry about us prosecuting you for what we prosecuted Donald Trump for.
The fraud case.
The fraud case. And they do the same thing. They actually have they run their businesses the same. And a lot of corporate heads have come out and said the same. Hey, he didn't do anything that we don't normally do. So for the governor of New York to come out specifically and say, oh, well, you don't have to worry about that, is a clear indication that the entire purpose of the trial and the entire purpose of the verdict was to try and sway voters and or get Donald Trump out of the race.
So if he's a convicted felon 6 months from now, does that sway you at all?
No, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, when he's president, he can pardon himself.
Untested legal theory.
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. My doctorate is not in law.
We may all find out together.
No, it doesn't. But all joking aside, no, it does not bother me at all because, to be honest with you, I'm not speaking for Black people. I'm speaking for Tracy Phillips. But there have been so many cases historically where minorities have been railroaded for reasons, whether it's the color of their skin, their socioeconomic background, expediency. The crime bill that Biden did, it was to push him politically. He didn't care about who it would affect. And knowing full well, because if I remember, he stood out on the Senate floor and said, if we don't pass this crime bill, they will come in and kill our mothers, or, I watched that, I saw that. This is nothing new. Using the judicial system to push an agenda is nothing new. They just have a different victim now. So no, would it bother me if he's convicted? No, because again, I think it would be, it'd probably be turned over on appeal. And whatever happens, I still would love him to get our country back where it needs to be.
I think we can stop there. Olivia, am I missing anything?
There was the concept of, the minute the economy downturns in this country, it affects Black communities, low-income Black communities, and that's what you saw happen. Do you want to go back on the economy, Garrett?
Oh, was that something from you guys to talk
Actually,
about?
Yvonne said that, but
She did actually, and I missed it when she was in the seat. I don't know if you want to,
I mean, I can speak on it anyway.
or we want to put Yvonne back in the chair. I don't.
No, we don't do that. Wait a minute. Is there an element to the economic part of the story that particularly affects the Black community that we kind of are missing here?
Definitely. I mean, because we understand that, first of all, African Americans are very resilient as a people. We're very resilient. We get together and do what we have to do. However, when the economy falters, when the economy is down, it's going to affect all people who live below the socioeconomic line, no matter what color they are. But statistically, more people of color live below the socioeconomic line. So it just falls to reason that if the economy downturns, who's it going to affect first and who's it going to affect worse? And it is Blacks, the Black community.
Perfect. Good. Anything else?
Yeah, I asked this question. Sorry, I asked this question ahead of time, but a lot of people say Donald Trump is racist. You had a very good answer to that. I was just wondering.
Yeah. Well, what do you make of that? I mean, look.
Could you ask the question?
Yes, I will. All right. Yeah, I mean, look.
I need it on tape.
Look, since he started running in 2015, this has been an attack line against him, the idea that he's a racist. So what do you make of that?
I think it's a joke, to be honest with you. And I'll tell you why, because prior to him announcing his candidacy in 2016, Black people loved him. He was on the Oprah Winfrey Show, or Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, they all took photos with him. He actually he did some cameos on popular black media, black
Mhm.
television shows, talk shows. So for them to come out and say he was racist, I personally have never heard him say anything that was racist against black people. I've never heard him say anything that was racist, period. Now, I will say this. So let's say you believe that, the propaganda from 2016. What did he do from 2016 to 2020? Well, he funded HBCUs permanently. That's something that, I don't know, our first black president didn't think to do. He decided not to, actually. He had black unemployment was the lowest historically it's been in this entire country. So if someone was racist, why would they focus on issues that are important to the black community during their time, during their tenure as president? I have never seen Donald Trump in person or in the media ever treat or say anything to a minority that wasn't loving and caring. He actually he pardoned so many criminals that were in jail. What proportion of them were black? A large proportion of them were black. And he pardoned them by executive order. So again, the proof is in the pudding, and I don't see any proof.
Okay.
Now I'm good.
Now you're good?
Yeah, I'm good,
Okay,
thanks.
All right, good. All right, you're off the hook.
All right.
Sit tight for a second. We'll get you all on.
Oh, I need to stand up.
You're great. No. I think Anthony will get you what you see. That was awesome. Thank you.
I think we're just gonna do a little setup B-roll.
Okay.